Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news, interviews and fun for the WordPress community. Now, welcome your host, Nathan Wrigley. Hello there and welcome once again to the WP Builds podcast. You've reached episode number 435 entitled At the Core with Birgit Pauli-Haack and Anne McCarthy, episode number 4. It was published on Thursday, the 4th of September, 2025. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and before we get to the chat with Birgit and Anne, a few bits of housekeeping. The first thing to say is, if I met you at WordCamp US last week, thank you so much for spending time with me. If you want to get in touch, there's the contact form on this website, wpbuilds.com/contact. Go there and we can get in touch. It's much more likely, though, that I gave you my email address or some other way of contacting me. But thank you so much. That event was absolutely fabulous. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you did too. The other thing to say is that if you like what we do at WP Builds, why not go and subscribe? Head to wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Over there, there's loads of ways that you can keep in touch. Our podcast RSS feed, YouTube channel, X, Mastodon, Blue Sky, and all of that is over there. Subscribe and stay in touch with what we do. The best way, though, is to sign up to our email list. There's some forms on that page. And if you do that, we'll alert you to the podcast episode, which comes out on a Thursday. That's what you're listening to now. But also, we record the This Week in WordPress show live every Monday, 2 p.m. UK time. And then we package that up as a podcast, and that comes out on a Tuesday. If you fancy joining us for that, head to wpbuilds.com/live every Monday at 2 p.m. UK time and join in the comments. We would really appreciate it. The other thing to say is that if you have a product or service in the WordPress space and you would like that to be more discoverable, well, we have a very specific and fairly large WordPress audience. Head to wpbuilds.com/advertise to find out more. A bit like these three fine companies did. The WP Builds podcast is brought to you today by GoDaddy Pro. GoDaddy Pro, the home of managed WordPress hosting that includes free domain, SSL, and 24/7 support. Bundle that with the Hub by GoDaddy Pro to unlock more free benefits to manage multiple sites in one place, invoice clients, and get 30% off new purchases. You can find out more at go.me/WP Builds. We're also joined this week by Bluehost. Bluehost, redefine your web hosting experience with Bluehost Cloud. Managed WordPress hosting that comes with lightning-fast websites, 100% network uptime, and 24/7 priority support. With Bluehost Cloud, the possibilities are out of this world. Experience it today at bluehost.com/cloud. And we're also joined by Omnisend. Omnisend, do you sell your stuff online? Then meet Omnisend. Yes, that Omnisend. The email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 for every dollar spent. The one that's so good, it's almost boring. Hate the excitement of roller coaster sales? Prefer a steady line going up? Well, try Omnisend today at omnisend.com. And sincere heartfelt thanks go to GoDaddy Pro, Bluehost and Omnisend for their support of the WP Builds podcast. Podcasts like this cannot happen without the grateful support of companies just like that. Okay, what have we got for you today? Well, today I am talking with Anne McCarthy and Birgit Pauli-Haack. This is the 4th episode in our At the Core series, and the idea is that once every quarter, about every 3 months or so, we hook up with Anne and Birgit and whoever else wishes to join us, and we talk about all of the different things that have happened in Core over the last period, but also looking ahead to what may be dropping in Core. So today we spend a bit of time talking about the roadmap document, all about WordPress 6.9. Anne has put that together. We discuss the latest branches and what's happening to the WP admin redesign. We talk about things like view transitions. We talk about APIs and a whole lot more. And if you're into WordPress on a very deep level, curious to know about the things that are happening in Core, this episode really is for you. And I hope that you enjoy it. I am joined on the podcast today by two wonderful people. I'm joined by Birgit Pauli-Haack and Anne McCarthy. Hello, both.
Well, hello, Nathan. Well, thank you for having me.
Hello, hello.
Very nice to have you both. Thank you very, very much indeed. We do this show, I guess quarterly, something like that. And the idea of this show is to sum up what's happened over the project, but really focusing on core, all of the bits and pieces that you might class as core. There's going to be a few plugins and things mentioned on this show as well, but we call it At the Core. And in order to establish both of your credentials, let's take you one at a time. Just a quick potted bio. If people have listened before, you can skip a few seconds because it's the same person. But you never know, they might have a new job title or something like that. So Birgit, let's go with you first. Tell us a little bit about you.
So my name is Birgit Pauli-Haack. I'm the curator of the Gutenberg Times and host of the Gutenberg Changelog podcast. And I'm also a WordPress developer advocate sponsored by Automatic.
Thank you very much. And Anne?
I'm Anne McCarthy. I am an architecture wrangler working at Automatic. I basically work as an accelerant, a doc connector, a doer across both our engineering groups within Automatic and the core project. So I sit at the nexus of things and love to live in between things and act as the glue.
It feels like
I have a post on my blog if you want to read more about my job because it's in flux right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think your job role has changed since we probably last spoke. So thank you for that. The three of us between us, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the pair of you are far more technically in the weeds than I am. I love to look at this stuff from a 10,000 foot perspective and look down and have an anecdotal understanding of everything. But you two are much more in the weeds and a much more technical understanding of things. So the intention here is to go through the bits and pieces that have happened, let's say for the last 3 months, something like that, and pick out the top level items that we think are interesting. Just to say, and I said this to you before we started the call, it did feel to me for a period of time earlier this year, so 2025, it did feel as if things had kind of slowed down a little bit. The brakes had come on. With WordPress in general, I would say, there was just far less blog posts, far less interest, it seemed. However, much to my delight and a little bit of surprise, over the last month, that trend has completely upended itself. And I don't quite know what it is. Maybe it's to do with some of the stuff we'll talk about today. But it really feels like the brick has been dropped on the accelerator pedal and we're back. WordPress seems to have some hotness to it again. So that's really nice. We're going to kick off things today with a post that Anne wrote. This post is entitled Roadmap to 6.9. It was published on, just a few short weeks ago. So July 28th, 2025. And in it, Anne, soup to nuts, goes through absolutely all of the different bits and pieces that you could possibly want to know about in terms of 6.9. So we're at 6.8 at the minute. This is a roadmap, things that will hopefully come along. Do you want to pick out either all the items or your top tips from here, top items?
Yeah, this is so hard to do because there's everything from like the abilities API, which will unlock a lot of cool stuff with AI, to things for the average user, like the simplified site editing mode. But yeah, maybe I can pick 3 things out. So I'll cut across a couple different groupings, so to speak. I'm particularly excited about the simplified site editing mode. There's some design thinking that needs to still happen there. But basically what that does is we've gotten a lot of feedback since I ran the outreach program, the FCC outreach program, that dropping into the site editor for a lot of people, it's just too many tools, it's too many things. I was just talking to Ed Beck, who is in higher ed, and he was talking about that with the students. And, there's the option to turn things off, but what about if there was this mode that you could turn on, maybe even as a preference for a user group? So if you have someone who's just an editor, or maybe they're still an admin, but you want them to have less permissions, having a simplified mode that just brings to the forefront content and some light changes. The tricky part is, what are those defaults? How do we allow that? And how do we make sure the site editor, if you want to get into all the guts, you can get into all the different little padding and margin and all these little fun things. Or if you just want to make content edits, it's super easy to just jump in and jump out and not get overwhelmed. So I'm really excited by the potential of that. It's been something that's been in progress for a while. And so I'm really hoping we can see it land. I think it will provide a lot of value for folks who are new to the site editor. Kind of similar to if you're working on a slideshow and you're just editing slides versus going in and editing the actual template that is behind the slides. It's like that kind of level of friction that we have been hearing folks need for a while, to know that they're going to go in and edit everything. So I'm very excited about that.
In your post, there's a short video, like a 30-second long video, where you kind of demo it. And it feels like at the moment, the current understanding of it, at least anyway, from my point of view, is there'll be like a toggle for it. You'll be able to button it on and button it off again. And but I hadn't really come to the conclusion that maybe you could, for a subset of users, you could switch it off so that it's just really straightforward. Because I'm in the WP admin all the time, I kind of ignore. I'm kind of completely tuned out of the buttons that I don't need. They're all there, cluttering up the interface, but my brain has learned to ignore them. But from what you've just said, the interface is a little bit much for a typical user who's just wrangling content, writing blog posts or something like that. Yeah, so that's a really neat idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And I like the idea you could tie it to a user in the future. Like there could be ways of actually setting that as like the default experience, or I know there's all sorts of ways, anything's possible with WordPress, but that's one of the things that I think whenever I've done testing with the feature previously, that's come up is like, oh, this would be so cool if I could assign this to a user group, because like they don't need access to all this stuff. And then also on the flip side, you can have someone who goes and get in and out in the same way we're used to using other tools. It's like, okay, let me go in and make more advanced changes. The tricky part is how much do you expose? What are the defaults? And like getting that right. And like previously when we've tested it, we haven't gotten that right. So I'm really excited about this release in order to kind of move that forward and hopefully ship it. And the video actually was done by Francisco, so I want to shout him out. He's a designer who helped me with that. That's why it's so beautiful.
Nicely done.
Yeah, definitely not me.
Birgit, do you have anything you want to say around that one?
No, I really like it because it kind of goes in together with the zoom out and zoom in view, and then also you can you can actually, as a developer or an agency developer who does it just for clients, you can actually programmatically assign content-only flags to certain sections of the canvas. So that's really interesting, because that was one of the big feedback we get from site editors since the beginning, that there are no guardrails for users to not mock up the design.
Okay, yeah.
And that's definitely another step forward into that direction, where a user who doesn't know anything much gets really comfortable with the guardrails that they have and just the little things that they can do, or the big things that they can do.
It's such a curious thing to think about as well, because mostly developers, forgive me, this is going to sound really generalized, but mostly developers are just thinking about adding in new things. Oh, get more new things. And this is a real endeavor we got loads of new things, let's just calm it down a little bit. And if you go into dedicated writing apps, like that, I've got a few for my Mac, that the goal there is to have almost nothing. Is really to strip it back and get it, no sidebars, no nothing. It's just this writing interface. And so hopefully, especially for novice users or users who don't have much in terms of the demand to change the padding or the margins or whatever, that'll be really useful. Okay, so there's the first bit. What else?
Next, I'm gonna try and structure this intelligently. I might do 4. Block level commenting, I think, is really exciting. So if you think about just collaboration and finally landing something there, a lot of work went into that previously from contributors on Multidots, and then Ella also really helped with that, as well as Johan, who both work with me at Automatic and with Birgit. And so I'm really excited about the block level commenting. I'm hoping we can see that land. It also touches on some of the AI stuff we'll talk about later, because you can imagine having an AI writing with you or providing edits as you're writing. Like there's just some really interesting surfaces there. And that's something previously, whenever I've talked with, there's like a research summary I did around phase 3 outreach. It's a big need. It's for small and big newsrooms. I think we've all gotten used to the Google Docs style.
Oh yeah.
So starting to kind of ship that and iterate quickly, I think is going to be really good.
Can I ask on that? Was it done on a block level because of technical difficulties? In other words, was the block level way of doing it a good first run at it?
Yeah.
The word by word is you basically need a different kind of server powering that. It gets really technically complex very quickly. And this is some of the work where the YJS creator came in, Kevin Jans came in last year and was helping on this. There's some really interesting work being done, thinking kind of towards the future. But for now, I think the block level commenting is just kind of like, WordPress, we're trying to ship things and iterate, get feedback and move from there. And so we're following the same approach as well, just to kind of narrow the scope and get something in place.
So any block would have that capacity. So if it's an image block, you can comment on the image. Mm-hmm. If it's, a gallery block, you can comment on the gallery and a paragraph and so on and so forth. And it surfaces in much the same way that you see in Google Docs. Over to the right of the canvas, you get, the usual kind of interface where you can type a comment and I guess decide if the comment is now fulfilled and tick it off and those kind of things. Yeah, really neat. And honestly, suddenly turns blog posts and things like that into some kind of intranet capability. You can do internal documents that don't need to be public facing, or I don't know, just get halfway to finishing it and get some editorial feedback, which it doesn't have to be done via a copy pasted Google Doc, frankly, because I think that's what many people do, isn't it? Copy the content out into Google Doc, do all the comments over there, then suck it back into WordPress. This will alleviate the need for that. Birgit, anything on that?
Absolutely. No, you've said it all, kind of. Yeah.
Nice.
You too.
Okay.
On the inline commenting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 3 out of a possible 4.
And Birgit, I'm curious to hear from you on this, but the template management, the work that Ella has this huge PR that's really exciting that basically will solve a bunch of long-standing pieces of feedback. And the one in particular that I'm excited about is the ability to retain and preserve your custom templates when switching themes. This has long been a pain point. And what that does is it basically allows you to like activate and deactivate. I don't know, Birgit, if you've heard from extenders around this, or if I feel like you're probably closer to this now around some of the pain points it solves, but yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely a few things that can be improved and that are on the way with Ella's PR. I really like the activation and deactivation, because all of a sudden you can have multiple templates that follow the same slug, but then you can decide which one you want to actually have active. So if you want to change it out for seasonal content, or if you want to change it out for different series or something like that, then that's possible. But with it, you would have just switched the template, but you would have need to get to every single post or pages where you wanted to do the switch. Now you can just overwrite the template and then have the template deactivated and the other one activated, and the content automatically fits in across the site. So that's a really good improvement.
Was that technically difficult to pull off? Was there a technical reason why that was not something which we might have had, I don't know, a few years ago?
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's also feedback. Yeah, it's also that a lot of people kind of say, well, now that we are that here, I have it so easy to make templates. All of a sudden, you want to kind of retain your work.
Okay.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
And the other one is, okay, now I can do more, which before it would involve a developer go back to the theme and put it all in and do the if when then kind of do this if that kind of. Yeah, and that's not very conducive to creativity, because you don't know if it's possible. But now when you play with it or work with it, you definitely know that there are more things that should be possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Was there a 4th?
I think we'll get to it.
Okay.
So we can keep going through the rest of the show.
Okay.
I think we'll naturally
in which
land
case
on it.
we'll move on. Actually, no, I'm going to say one.
Do it.
Yeah, the command palette. I think that's really great. So it's been there, but in limited functionality. I use a variety of different things on my Mac, so Spotlight and Alfred and things like that. And when I'm in the mood for using it, I heavily use it. I make a lot of use of it because it's ubiquitous. It's available to me literally everywhere. And in WordPress, I haven't made use of it at all because it hasn't been widely used. And now it's going to be much more widely deployed across a whole range of different parts of the website. And it's kind of interesting. Also, there's definitely a need for this because there's a few commercial things that have dropped. I don't know if you've seen, there's a few commercial plugins that have dropped which do sort of similar things across the entire website. And so I think there's definitely going to be great need for that. And once it's there and it's ubiquitous, especially once it starts to join forces with AI and help us create content via a text-based input interface, it's perfect for that. So that was my one.
I have one thing that I'm really excited about.
Okay.
We're probably just getting the architectural foundations for it, but it's the ability to hide and show blocks.
Oh,
yeah, that has been out there as a feature request for a long, long time, and I think Nick Jago's block visibility is used by everybody who's using the block editor for site things. So I'm glad that it's coming to core and that there are some ideas on how integrated it will be in the first iteration. But I'm really excited about that.
So, dear listener, just in case you've missed that, This is the capacity to sort of write content on the back end and, I don't know, a draft paragraph or something. And instead of drafting the whole post, you can just say, I'm not quite finished on that paragraph or whatever that piece of content is. And you just switch it off. And it's still there, but when you go to the front end, it's invisible. I mean, it's not on the front end. It's not rendered on the front end. And I know it sounds like nothing, but it's so self-evident in a web publishing context. In a Google Doc, no, we don't need that. But in this context where things, the world will see it the minute you click publish, but something's not quite ready, or you may have misspelled a name, or whatever it may be, that's brilliant. And I agree. I think everybody's used Nick's solution. I have it.
It lays the ground. Oh,
sorry. No, you go.
Yeah.
It lays the groundwork too for some of the responsive feedback that we've gotten. So this release, the scope is not going to be, hide on this whatever media query size, but I think in the future it lays the groundwork for some of that feedback as well, because that is definitely a couple of things in the release lay some really nice groundwork for 7.0. And so my brain is already like thinking about 6.9, the pieces that will hopefully be in place, and then kind of like there's a really exciting next couple of releases. Like I think this is going to be a huge step forward. And it was so hard to pick these things when you're like pick 3. I'm like, oh God, how do I?
Well, between us,
how do I pick?
I think we did about 6 in the end there, so that's really
I know.
But what I'll do, as I always do, if you head to wpbuilds.com, search for this episode. Probably the easiest way is to just go to the little magnifying glass icon at the top of the site, search for At the Core, and this will be, the most recent version of that. And the links will all be in the show notes. So Anne's piece, which, as I said at the top, was called Roadmap to 6.9. It's on make.wordpress.org. You could probably Google it. It's probably quicker than going to my site, actually thinking about it.
There's a ton of people who helped with it too. So I want to make sure to give credit to them as well.
Okay.
Where it's a group effort. A lot of it is, I know my name is on there, but there's a lot of props to give to people who came together, contribute, who are doing the work, or creating, iteration issues for the release and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of moving pieces. A lot of people had to come together to get this out as soon as we did, before the release squad was even announced,
nice.
Which is kind of an exciting thing. I think it helps people who might be interested in that to raise their hand.
The release squad hasn't been announced yet, has it?
Not yet, no. I think it was just closed to people being, I've been out for the last week, so I might be missing information. But yeah, that's one, I previously have done this before with release roadmaps, where it's getting it out early, building some excitement. And I've done both. We're, I think, at the stage of where we are. And something I do want to mention is originally a release was not planned. A second release was not planned for this year. There was change in contributor capacity, especially from the automatic side. And so that project leadership reconsidered. And that was part of a conversation that core committers had with Matt. So that's part of also why we went from 1 release per year to now 2. And so I mentioned that at the top, but that's another thing to point out for folks who are preparing for this. This will be released in 2025 on December 2nd.
Yeah, December 2nd. Yeah, so it's fast approaching. Just so that you feel good, Anne, having written this, not only was it incredibly easy to read, and we'll get onto some more technical things later, which I frankly find difficult to parse because I'm not in the weeds of it all, but also this got picked up everywhere. I consume all the content from all of the WordPress media people. So I get the Gutenberg Times and all of the other different emails that drop during the week, and this was like the thing in all of them on the week.
Well, it's always vulnerable. Yeah, it's always vulnerable. I'm still not used to that. Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I'm glad it was useful.
Yeah, it was really
that was part of why it felt important.
Everybody was riffing around it and coming up. You created a lot of excitement, as you said, so that's really nice. Okay, so that's our roadmap 6.9 bit. Then we get into some more technical things. The next 3 bits and pieces we might summarize as WP admin redesigns and getting things in front of people. So this is very much experimental territory. There's going to be 3 different bits and pieces linked to from GitHub. They are all, no, they're not. 2 of them are written by Matthias, so we'll cover off those 2 first. As I said, I said this to you before we hit record. I got a little bit confused by the first one, the admin materials and surfaces, because I think it's kind of casting right into the future about what things might look like. And I kind of got fixated on the drawings that he'd made, the graphics that he'd made, and was trying to figure out where these would fit into the UI and so on. But does somebody want to try and take this apart and explain to me the concept of materials, concepts, and screens, because that was where I got lost.
Well, I can try if you let me.
Thank you.
Interrupt me if I get things wrong. So the admin materials and surfaces is pretty much how you organize the screen or the pages. And the materials are like the foundation of it, main areas, pop-up spaces, and how a room, kind of the walls around the room. And then the concepts, he talks about more like furnitures or appliances that go into those rooms, like navigation menu, content list, forms, blocks, all those. And then and then the screens are for, okay, I have my furnitures for the living room, and then I have my furnitures for the kitchen, and then I have an office, and then the furnitures are rearranged. The screens are pretty much a 4-pane window. Does it work?
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself, I wish somebody had explained it to me in terms of rooms and furniture. Then I would have totally got it. So you've managed to completely encapsulate the whole thing.
That would be a good comment on that issue, Birgit.
Yeah,
like just to kind of be like for folks who are trying to read this and understand.
So I was
like,
nodding because you totally immediately I was like, okay, I parse it now. That makes sense. So carry on. Sorry.
So for the screen that it looks like the site editor that we have now for the admin design, but it has additional ways to do quick edits. So you have 4 panes. One is the navigation, then there's a middle section, 2 middle section, and a left section. And they are combined differently. Whatever the developer thinks is useful for a certain screen. Like, is it a list for media? You have a grid view. If you have a list of posts for the post view, that's better in a list. And if you have a page view, you have a list of pages, but you click on it, and you have on the right-hand side a preview kind of the page. So that can all be combined as it suits the developer, or at least the content best displayed for the user. There's also another one that I really like is the quick edit part. I don't think it's yet came really out. It's in an experiment on Gutenberg, I think, partially, where you can change things in a bulk edit, kind of what we have in the current WP admin. Yes, all these kind of things need to fit in. So I'm going to end there now.
That's been really helpful. I mean, if you go to the article, you'll obviously see, and you can now parse it in terms of room and furniture and things like that, which might help. It certainly got me along. But that makes way more sense. And also, this feels like a UI where you can kind of mix and match. You can put things on top of other things or by the side of other things. So instead of it being, I don't know, maybe you go into the post and the post is now the thing. This could be a kind of confection of, well, there's the post and another thing happening at the same time. You could have a sidebar with, well, there's something which looks a little bit like almost like a chat interface. So that's maybe where those comments that we were talking about earlier could fit. Okay, Anne, anything on that?
I just, to zoom back out again, and thank you, Birgit, you did a great job of explaining that. It's right now the work is being done at an architecture level. So it's really tough not to get distracted by design and just say, like, this is what's going to look like, this is what's going to be. And like, I just want to encourage folks to there's a reason these GitHub issues are so technical, is because we are thinking about building reusable pieces that can be combined and that are structured in different ways to both reimagine the current WP admin, but also think about things like backwards compatibility. And so just remember that the focus is on the architecture side. I think it's, at least for me, I can get really distracted by visuals. And so I just want to encourage people to kind of look at those different issues and think about it as building the foundation. And so that's being done right now. And this is mentioned in the 6.9 post, but that's the work that's being done right now alongside 6.9. And hopefully we'll get to a place where that can be, even as like a demo can be seen alongside 6.9.
Yeah, so again, links in the show notes, but if you do go there, and like me, you get completely upended by the visuals and concentrate on those at the exclusion of almost everything else, then caveat emptor, just be a little bit aware. There's also this whole base layer, which is mentioned at the top, which is kind of like, that feels almost like the bit that we've got at the moment, but sort of slightly modified. But this bit that maybe doesn't ever go away, where you've got this sidebar on the left or something like that. Okay, so admin materials and surfaces, that's GitHub. So it's within the, I am right. It's within the WordPress /Gutenberg. And the issue there is 70913, if that's helpful to you. The next one, again, same repository, but 70710. Look how nerdy we are. We're reading GitHub issue numbers into a podcast episode. Oh, Lord. This one, again, by Matthias, Abilities and Workflows Overview. I am not even going to pretend to have understood this. I read it again, and I got lost fairly quickly. So please, help me out of my morass, one of you.
Do you want to try it, Anne?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So this ties into some of the command palette everywhere work too. So if you think about it, it's basically just unifying all the pieces of this new admin experience, but then adding in the ability to create things like workflows using the command palette. So the command palette is a pretty essential piece to that. It's part of why work is being done to expand it. With this context in mind. And you can think about it as basically using the Abilities API, which is a list of all the things that, a site can do. Basically, I'm trying to use a really high level.
No, that's good to
understanding of this.
Put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later. Yeah.
Combined with like a new idea of a workflows API, which you can chain commands together, and then to bring it even all the way further to another level. So you have a command palette, you can do one thing. There's workflows API, you can chain commands together. Then how about if you could actually create your own workflow? So you could actually have a visual editor that allows you to build customized workflows. So maybe there's something that you're doing with an editorial team that you want to have a customized workflow for. You open the command palette and you've already set up this workflow in place. And then let's say you need to tweak it. There'll be a visual editor where you can actually tweak the workflow and tweak the command. So it's very far reaching and touches a lot on the command palette and a lot of work that's being done within the AI group. And it's a central part of how we think about the future of how WordPress is going to be interacted with. So instead of that might be people's main way of interacting is through the command palette, for example.
Yeah.
Similar to what we see with like chat interfaces right now with AI. So that's kind of thinking about this. Again, it's from like a very technical, it's breaking it down into like Abilities API, Workflows API, the workflow editor. It's breaking it down into technical pieces, but if you put them together, you can kind of see this vision of a way more interactive, dynamic, personalized, extensible admin experience.
So the Abilities API is kind of like an API which allows you to get more or less everything that WordPress can do. If you can find it somewhere in WordPress, click a button, do a setting, whatever it may be, that will be available as an API. So it could be, create post, make a post.
And plugins too can say like, here are the things we can do.
Right.
And then basically if everyone does it in the same structured way, you can walk up to any WordPress site and say, what can you do for me? Here's all the stuff, and kind of have it be in a way that AI can understand and can act upon it when you think about like agentic stuff.
Yeah. And then, so all of those abilities then can be chained together in a workflow. And I think this is where it kind of broke down for me, this piece, because I couldn't imagine a workflow. That was basically where my brain couldn't go anymore. I mean, I can imagine in the abstract that you could chain things together, but I was thinking, what could I chain together? And usually I'm dotting around, pressing a button, waiting for something to load, then pressing another button, then waiting for that to finish, then typing, for example, and then clicking publish. So my workflows are all about, I do the thing, click the button, do the next thing, click the button. So I couldn't really imagine, but then I'm no developer. So I imagine developers would be able to do this. And then presumably when you've come up with these ingenious workflows, you give it a name, bind it into the command palette. So next time you can just recall it with a few keystrokes and that thing.
Or user can too.
Right.
Like you pan it off a site and it's like, here are some customized workflows for you.
Yeah. Okay. That's
well. Think about it for business directory. You have a new entity that you want to put in the business directory. There are 15 different steps that you have to do, and if you give that workflow just the basics of that business, it can go out and grab some stuff, grab some Google Maps location, and do all that, and you can all put that together in a workflow. So what you normally take about 20 minutes to finish on your website can be done faster. Yeah.
Birgit, inverted commas, the explainer, Pauli-Haack, she's got this new role. She just takes the difficult thing and makes it easy. That's so helpful. Thank you. Yeah, that works. I get it now. Okay, that's brilliant. Can I do this every week? So I can understand the WordPress project on a more or less weekly basis. That's great. Okay, so there's abilities and workflows overview. Are we done with that one? I think we're done with that one. Yeah, okay.
I think so. Yeah.
In which case, we will go to the next one. This is Riyadh, so it's no longer Matthias. This is 70862, admin redesign, a solid, I'm going to say routing because I'm from the UK, foundation. So again, kind of got lost on this. One of you two is going to have to do the explaining for me.
You go.
Want to do it, Birgit? Yeah, I can do it too.
Go for it.
Yeah, so like underpinning all of this is like, how do the pieces stick together? How do you actually route these things together? And it touches on backwards compatibility. Like he outlines all these things from like developer experience to internationalization to lazy loading, to different editor APIs, preloading. So some of the stuff that with performance optimization, transitions and animations. It's like, how does this all glue together and how do you actually navigate between everything? And there's a lot of technical pieces around this, including things like deep linking, like what can you actually like link to from the site editor? Like that's been another point of feedback that I've seen come up is like, why can't I link to this specific part in the styles experience and then pass it on to someone else? So a lot of this is, again, when we think about this work that's happening right now, it's very technical and it's about creating that foundation for the admin redesign based on some of what's been learned from building out the site editor and making it as easy as possible so that developers and third-party developers don't have to recreate the wheel. There's like known conventions and ways to build these and register routes without needing to recreate a bunch of stuff or do it differently, and then nothing works well together. And so you can imagine a third-party developer who wants to adopt this stuff could use this routing foundation to have their stuff preload or work really well and integrate well in a way that feels native. But yeah, again, very technical.
Yep.
So
Birgit, if you have anything you want to add.
That little bit, sorry, just to interrupt there, that little bit that you just mentioned about things being, I know WordPress has always had this thing of, we do it the WordPress way and what have you, but it does feel, especially as when we get onto the AI stuff in a minute, that sentence seems to be getting repeated more and more out in the open about we're going to build this way in WordPress for everybody else to hook into it. I don't know if I'm just picking up on that for some reason, but it does feel like everything is being built with that very much in mind. The assumption that the third-party developers, AI, and all of these other things are going to want a standardized way of doing things. And I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I've got such a strong sense.
I think it's been in the project for a long time. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that has been the sentiment is like, if we see developers building a bunch of similar stuff, it's like, let's solve it at the root.
Yeah.
Because if people do their own implementation, it's hard to maintain. Right. It's hard to run into edge cases when you upgrade software. Like, it becomes this whole, you're not getting good feedback. So I think it's it's in line with that kind of idea.
Lovely.
I think that WordPress is now at a point, especially with the block editor, site editor, and content editor, where core has to think about extensibility, because that was one of the things that a lot of plugin developers are kind of holding back in adoption of plugin blocks and block themes. Is the extensibility has still a little bit been, how do I say it nicely? It was a little fragmented. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was not a clean API because the core, the foundation wasn't done yet. Yeah, so you cannot extend something if you don't know how it's going to be when a user uses it. Yeah, and I think WordPress has now become to that point where that is actually in the forefront, because we have all the APIs in. And we're building new APIs, but those structural things, the architecture, knows now more about both of it. Yeah, the new JavaScript React part of it. I say new; it's 10 years old now. But and then what comes out afterwards, and how everything can fit together. Yeah.
I would entirely reflect that sentiment. Again, from the 10,000 mile view, I'm getting a sense of that being a much more publicly stated position. It was probably always thus, but it does feel that now that foundational work on all of these different editing experiences in WordPress is being kind of rounded off a bit, then these pieces can come to the forefront. And I didn't see this when I initially looked at the Google Doc, but we've got another one in there as well. Data views, quick editing.
Well, I added that in
nice.
after our discussion about quick editing.
No, that's brilliant.
Drop it in.
Do you want to mention what's going on in there? So this is again a queue. I've forgotten the word in GitHub. What is it called?
Issue.
An issue. Thank you. 55101. Data views, quick editing. You dropped it in. Do you want to just tell us what's going on here?
Yeah, it's basically part of the admin materials and services. So if we're zooming into like a specific one, this is one of those reusable pieces. So you can imagine quick editing. Let's say you're in the media library and you want to quickly edit something about the image. It will open that panel. And so it's providing a standardized way to do that. Or you can imagine if you're editing a product, or maybe you're editing a custom post type and you want to have just a way to quickly edit those things, or a post or a page. That quick editing experience is consistent across both when you're using WordPress now, and then if you add in, plugins. So having a unified way to have this quick edit feature is part of what's being worked on within the data views side, and just getting that experience right. This is a much more visual issue, which is like helpful to see what's being thought of. And you can see how it's trying to match the quick edit experience in WP Admin right now and basically replicate that. But it's one of those kind of admin materials and surfaces. Like it's in that grouping of how do we think about this, including if you have something that could bulk edit. So you can imagine selecting a bunch of posts and you want to delete them, or selecting a bunch of images and wanting to download them. Like, what does that look like?
This is going to sound like a really churlish comment, but a lot of these kind of quick edit type of things at the minute, they're not that attractive. They're like fairly, like it's a bunch of little fields and they kind of all mashed together, and there they all are, and it's not that nice to look at. This looks nice, which is so kind of on one level really unimportant, but on another level, if you're in the software all the time, all day, every day, having the UI look great really matters. And this looks great. It just looks totally modern, the way you might see, I don't know, a SaaS app or something like that doing it. So it's a silly throwaway comment, really, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from there. Just the way it looks is important, I think.
Yeah. If you spend all day in that interface, you want it to have nice. Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's totally good.
It's the difference between... No, I'm not going to say that. No, I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to regret it. It's the difference between Drupal and WordPress. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I'll never be forgiven for that. But WordPress looks nice, and Drupal is hard to look at on the back end, and so there's that. Right, with regret for having said that, let's move on. Some really profoundly interesting stuff happening, and the first one that we're going to raise is a plugin. It's called View Transitions. It's written by Felix Arntz, who is on the performance team, I believe. He's a Googler, and so that there's a lot in the wheelhouse of Google, trying to make the web quicker and all of that kind of stuff. And View Transitions, how to describe it? Imagine you're on your phone and you've downloaded a really nice modern app. And I don't know, let's say it's a music playing app or something like that, and you press play on a song. You don't expect the song page in front of you on the phone to kind of pause for a minute and then completely refresh and, I'm on the song now. What you expect is some beautiful gliding featured image of the song to happen. Then the plugin, the little player will fade in and it will all happen seamlessly. And the web has not been that. The web has been a collection of little siloed places where one thing is disconnected from the other. You click a button, you wait to load. You click a button, you wait to load. View Transitions is levering features which I believe are in the browser. So, I caveat emptor, there might be different implementations across different browsers. But it's the capacity to bind, let's say, a title in an archive view. You could take the title and say, when you click on that title, make it grow and expand to become the title of the main post. I am never going to do it justice in words, not in a million years. But when you see it, you're like, well, why didn't we have this for a decade or more? because it just turns the web from this janky experience of load, do something, into this gliding through. And so Felix has got a plugin to achieve that. And I feel like I've sucked up all the oxygen in the room. I don't know what else there is to say there, but please, over to you.
Yeah. We had this before. Yeah, it was just done in CSS.
Yeah.
It was not a browser kind of thing. And there was no API, so everybody implemented any kind of transitions with their own libraries, or with maybe a library from this corner of the internet and then 15 other libraries from the other corner of the internet. And now we have actually a transitions API where a CMS like WordPress can tap into and make that available for all websites. Still, with the plugin, user controlled, but it's now, you don't have to worry about other libraries. You don't have to worry about coding about that. So I think it's really grand that we have that now. But it took the browser community to step up and find an API for that.
And I think I'm right in saying that it's a progressive enhancement. So if your browser, let's say you're on a phone or something like that, and your browser does not support the particular transition which is in play, then you're just where you were last year. It just looks the same as it ever did. But I'm imagining that this is going to ship across every browser in every possible way in the next period.
Yeah, I haven't looked yet, but I think there's already a 90% of coverage already.
Yeah, I think so. Is it Baseline you can go to? I think Baseline or something like that.
Yeah, I need to. I forgot.
Yeah.
I hardly do those searches anymore.
No, it's kind of curious if you do. Sometimes you do get a little bit of lag. It often seems to be Firefox that, is causing the difference, if you know what I mean. But Anne, anything on that?
I'm mainly curious to see how it develops. Like, I love that. This is where I love the plugin model, where people can experiment, try things, get feedback. I mean, you can notice it has all 5-star reviews. People seem to really like the feel of it. I think it does a good job of mimicking like a SAP experience. Like there's something about that. And it's helpful to see what resonates with folks. Like that's always something that folks working in core are looking at, and Felix is one of those people working in core. So it's really neat to see, and I'm curious to see how it lands and continues to get good feedback.
One thing which has just occurred to me, and I had an interview with Felix about this, and I forgot to, I didn't even think about it. I'm just wondering what the accessibility, whether or not the DOM being recreated, where does the title, for example, end up? And so where do screen readers end up at the beginning on the new page? But also a lot of it seems to be tied to motion. So, you get an image which grows and ends up in the middle of the page as opposed to as a small image. And whether or not it does things like, I don't know, prefers reduced motion, that kind of thing. So there's little things around the edge of this project which might need tweaking over the days, weeks and months to come. But it is profoundly cool. And as you say, Big, it's been around forever, but it's been around forever in 4,000 different JavaScript libraries that make it difficult for everybody to use the same one. It looks as if Jamie Marsland did a video about this, so I will also link to that in the show notes. So that's probably the best way to actually conceptualize it.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah.
Demoing that.
That video was called "This Free WordPress Plugin is a Must-Have for Every Website," and View Transitions is the name of the project over on wordpress.org. That's where you can find that plugin. Okay, shall we move to the next one in that case? Now, I maintained my ignorance a lot about some of the previous ones. This one I am entirely ignorant. I only caught sight of this when you dropped this into the show notes. So we're back with the profoundly... what's the word? He's got a good work ethic. Let's put it that way. It's Matthias again. New block edition.
His name is Matthias.
Matthias.
Sorry.
No, that's good.
Actually, I meant to say something earlier. And I was like, I got to just say it now.
I apologize, Matthias, for every time.
Honestly,
I must have said that 1,000 times in my podcast, and I always say Matthias. Matthias, new block editions for the block library 71026. Tell us more. There's a lot in here, I think, but I don't understand it.
Well, WordPress has always fall back that WordPress core does the minimum and all that, but that doesn't really apply to the blocks block editor, because people want to have additional features. And what they did at the beginning, since the first, 2 months or so that it came out, is adding blocks to the block editor from plugins. And all of a sudden they came up with, they ended up with 40 or 70 blocks that were installed on the block editor. But there's no standard way to have all the things that people need to build websites. And that's why the block plugins and ecosystem has kind of grown so much. Yeah? And I think there's a revisit of that thing that dogma, so to speak, that only the basics are in core and everything else is plugin territory. So I think we all, many of us need an icons block, need a slider and carousel block out of the box for the editor, or a tabs block, an accordion block, and mega menus. I think there was a real period at the block editor where there were different mindsets kind of looking at that. So I'm glad that Matthias kind of came around and put the feedback that came from a lot of agencies and news people, that they don't want to install 15 plugins just to get a good set of blocks that they can use for their content.
So the ones so he's basically gone around and just looked at the previous, I don't know how long he's gone backwards and forwards, but he's tried to kind of corral all of the ones which he feels have been mentioned enough times to make this list. The top of the list is the icons block. Can I just say, please? Yes. Can we all have that one? Because I don't know any website which doesn't need that. Playlist block, slider, stroke carousel block, stretchy text, interesting. Tabs block, accordion block, mega menus, math ML, marquee block, time to read block, breadcom block, dialogue block. They're not in alphabetical order, so I wonder if they're in order of some perceived importance. I don't know.
They're not.
No.
He would say something if it were. Yeah.
But there's a little laundry list there of things which might make your WordPress website a whole lot easier out of the box. If you installed vanilla WordPress and you've got all of those bits and pieces. They seem to be functional in nature, don't they? I suppose the slider one and the stretchy text one, there's a bit of design in there, but there's quite a lot of layout options in there, things like tabs, menus, accordions, things like that. That's interesting. Breadcrumbs, lots of ways of just sort of making things go onto the page in a nice way. Is there anything from that list that you think would be more important or is indeed missing?
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff that I think there's so many other conversations that have happened around what's missing. But to me, I think so. One of the things that's really tricky that I think Joe Dosen says something later around because so many people recreate these, there's dozens of these type of blocks available and a lot of them are inaccessible. So we can provide something that is core, that is up to a certain standard. This would help with a lot of different use cases there. And the slider carousel comes up in particular to me, as well as table of contents is not on here. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we already have that as a to-do list to stabilize the table of contents.
Okay.
Oh, I have updated that issue for so many releases. You have a lot of patience working in core. But that's one that I remember I looked at this and I was like, oh, interesting, table of contents isn't there. So that's another one that I think has come up a lot that is missing. But there's a certain point where you have to draw a line. And I will say, I think for folks who are listening to this and have wanted to contribute back to Core 2, I think this is a great way to have a contained, high impact way to get experience contributing to Core. So if this is something you're interested in, compared to a lot of other things, these are just distinct one-off. There's not a lot of dependencies.
Right.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I would love to see community contribution here. This is something that I would much rather have folks who are long-time committers working on things like inline block comments and the ability to hide a block, and then people who have maybe built these. Maybe you're an author of a plugin that bundles this, or if you built this kind of stuff as an agency, like please contribute back in these ways. This is a huge, cool way to get involved in the project to like address real need. And I just wanted to call that out as, sometimes people are like, I don't know how to contribute. I'm like, here you go. This is a great,
and
super obvious, super great way.
I think it's fair to say that many of those blocks have been done 4 or 5 times over by third-party developers. None of those seem mysterious, do they? So there's definitely routes to do it.
Maybe the marquee block.
Maybe the marquee block. Yeah, I think you're right about that. The other ones though, but yeah, Joe Dolson's point. He makes a comment further down about he says he's largely in favour of adding laws in, but if we're going to do it, let's make sure that they are accessible. And it's a surefire way to make them accessible, right? If it's in core, everybody can put their 2 cents in and what have you. Interesting things like the slider and carousel. I know that modern CSS is getting to the point where it can handle all of that without any JavaScript as well. So the accessibility of that, whilst not perfect, is certainly in view. Okay, that all makes more sense to me now. Thank you so much. All right, shall we move on to the next thing? Dare I say it? I've been doing this podcast for far too long, and since 2016 I've spoken a lot of words about WordPress. This is one of the most important things, I think. I'm not that interested in, I'm doing air quotes, interested in AI. I don't find myself using it a lot. I'm not a developer, so I'm not writing code with it or building, plugins or what have you. So I know it's profoundly interesting in that sense, and I don't tend to find myself wandering into it and creating content. So my exposure to AI is not that great. However, I can't ignore the fact that everybody seems to be falling over themselves with excitement about it, and I couldn't make the leap where WordPress fit in. I just couldn't do it. All the bits that I'd seen about AI in WordPress felt to me like just sticky tape. You were adding a thing in which achieved a task, but it was proprietary. It might, create excerpts or write the alt text for your image or something like that. Now, with this piece by James LePage and a bunch of linked pieces, the penny has begun to drop, and the excitement is palpable in me now as well. Because what we're looking at here is basically, how to describe it, almost like rebuilding? No, that's the wrong word. Rethinking all of WordPress for the next generation who are going to be using AI as like the baseline. I think it's fair to say that you and I, it's probably still quite novel, but my kids, it's going to be how they communicate with everything. They're not going to want to press buttons and use a mouse and a keyboard if they can get away with just saying it out loud or what have you. And so this is called AI building blocks for WordPress, profoundly important, and it's linked as various different subsections: PHP AI Client SDK, the Abilities API, the MCP adapter, and the AI Experiments plugin. They in turn lead off to different, more complicated articles where they, the weeds are drawn back and you get into it. But but what it presents to you is this overarching thought process of how can we get AI into everything in a standardized way so that you don't need to think about the plugin that you need to download. You just need to stick an API key in somewhere, and that's it. Because the AI will then know, because of what has been built and described here, if you say, make me a post with 3 featured images about dogs, I want you to think about the SEO, I want it to be published next Thursday at 3:00, and blah-de-blah, it knows how to do all of those different pieces because that's been exposed through the Abilities API. And that was the bit that was missing. It was just little discrete bits which enabled you at the moment you were in the interface to do that one thing better. This feels like suddenly WordPress is a first-class relation to the AI, which is kind of weird. I don't really know. But am I summing that excitement up about right, do you think? Okay, I'm getting a couple of nods, so that's good.
I think you got it really good. Yeah. And if you're on the post and you go read through it, each one of the other posts have kind of a little summary. And then you end up, the 4th plugin is actually the AI experience plugin. And that brings all the building blocks together in kind of an example view. Yeah, so it serves as a powerful tool how to get the PHP AI client SDK, software development kit. And that's actually aptly named because it's not for WordPress alone. It's for anybody who works with PHP, and that's a few million people more. And then bring all these three things together and see what you can do with it. Yeah, and how the integrates with WP CLI and the visual workflows and all that. I haven't gone into it yet very deeply, but I know that Jonathan Bozinger has.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also know that in pieces, Ryan Welcher did, and he's coming around again. But all these plugins will not end up in core for now. They're all canonical plugins, but there also will be pieces that are used by WordPress for the workflows, for the command palette, for the some other tools that we're going to build. But there will be canonical feature plugin because the AI space is moving so fast that you cannot guarantee backwards compatibility. Yeah. So it needs to be in a feature plugin and not going core, because core has and still has very firmly a backwards compatibility promise.
Yeah. Just, dear listener, if you don't know what a canonical plugin is, think of it like something that could easily just map straight into core. You could dump it right into core tomorrow, really, but it's not in core, but it's going to get the same security posture. It's going to get the same updating and all of that. But it does feel like something like this big. It kind of, I don't know if it'll ever belong in core. If it's easily discoverable, some people, I guess, will just not want anything to do with AI, so maybe it won't be for them. But yeah, thank you for that. That was really helpful. Anne, anything on that?
The only thing I'll add is that the focus at a high level is on building tools for developers in a way that is user first. So it's not, again, a kind of similar thing that we've been talking about before, but rather than every developer who wants to integrate AI rebuilding the AI infrastructure and making sure it works correctly, this just creates some standardization and shared tooling that can do things in a way that is in line with how WordPress has been built. And with that in mind, as well as just simplifying, at the user level, if someone wants to switch between providers, it becomes very simple.
Right.
You're not getting stuck into vendor lock-in.
Yeah.
And so it honors WordPress's history and our approach, as well as opens the door and paves this path for AI integration in the future that becomes much more simpler, and that frees developers up, again, to not recreate the wheel every single time you're doing it, and provides just kind of shared pieces. And it's intentional that it started with developers first because of kind of, folks are saying backwards compatibility, like Birgit brought up, and also just some people may not want AI in their site. Yeah. So like you can provide the plumbing for it, the infrastructure for it, then people can opt in or out and respect kind of user desires on that. So I think it's really exciting. I think it's a really neat approach, and I think it makes sense for where we are in terms of preserving the open web.
Yeah.
So if we can shift WordPress in order to work well with this, I think when we zoom out for your kids in our future, I want the open web to be part of this and to be something that can be at the forefront as well, and not left behind where we're stuck into vendor lock-in and we're paying $100 a month to have access to whatever nonsense, Like I'd much rather have it where it's open source.
So again,
we know what's happening.
I sort of underline the fact that we've said what we said earlier, which is that we've got all these foundational pieces where it feels like we're building bits that are just standardized, that other people can get their teeth into. The developer, we don't need 50 developers making AI the pipe work for the AI. We'll have WordPress do that, and then the developers can get on with the more exciting bit of making the AI do whatever it does. And maybe this kind of, I don't know, maybe this will create a bit of excitement out there in the wider world. Maybe that was the bit that I was describing right at the top of the show, where it felt like things had slowed down a little bit. I feel like the AI piece, this team that have obviously been doing this work, this newly formed team with James LePage at the helm, I guess, maybe that's responsible for it. It does certainly seem out there in the wild that AI is all the hotness. And curiously, it's, as far as I know, the AI team is the first team that have been housed in the same physical location. It's the first non-distributed team in WordPress, and I don't know what that says about the profundity of it.
Yeah, let me correct that.
Oh, thank you.
It's yeah. So Automatic is separate from WordPress project, but Automatic, Matt is experimenting with having some folks work on AI for Automatic out of our New York office, and a lot of that is actually separate from what will be happening in core.
Oh, okay.
So those folks will be working more broadly within Automatic's products, and of course there'll be alignment around different things. But Automatic has a ton of things from Tumblr to Beeper to Day One to we have tons of stuff as part of democratizing.
I saw the Beeper event actually the other day. I don't know if you watched that, but I felt like I was watching like an Apple thing. Do you know what I mean? I really got a sense of, gosh. I mean, I just associate I know they've got these things, right? And I use many of them. So I use Beeper, I use Pocket Casts, I have used Day One. So I know they're there, but I kind of forget that Automatic's responsible for those. And to see Automatic in that kind of Apple presentation mode was really curious to me. And I thought it was really great. This jazzy venue and and they brought somebody onto the stage and it was all... Oh, it was lovely. It was really, really great. That was Beeper.
I also loved Beeper. Was so I've beta tested early stuff when we first acquired Text and Beeper, and I haven't used it in a bit. And so whenever this launch happened,
I haven't stopped using it since the day it was bought.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. I ran into a bunch of connection issues. I find bugs. I'm attracted to bugs. So I ran into all these bugs and was I'm not using this. This isn't working for me. I reinstalled it whenever this launched because before I was using Text and immediately deleted 4 different apps from my phone. And I was bless it. One of my best friends loves WhatsApp. I hate WhatsApp. Yeah. Now it's all just integrated into Beeper and I can message him whenever. And it's oh, sweet relief. I'm such a minimalist
annoyingly,
that I'm
quite annoyingly, the one that seems to fail, and I think it's on Facebook side, is WhatsApp. That one kind of gets disconnected.
Oh, really?
Periodically. Yeah. It's much less now, but when the app first came out, it was every 3 days. Yeah. Now I think we're on a much more solid kind of 2-month cadence, something like that. But occasionally you have to put WhatsApp back because there's some handshake that needs to happen, or there's something you have to scan a QR. Anyway,
one day.
Blah 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 blah. But it's brilliant. It is the only communication tool I now use. I just want them to have Blue Sky. Anyway, we're getting off piste.
No, but just to clarify the AI team in New York, that is a totally separate Automatic only weird one-off thing that we're trying and experimenting with, which I think is really cool. One of the parts of our creed is, there is no such thing as a status quo. Challenging the very foundations of how Automatic works, I think it's part of why I've worked here for almost 11 years is everything's always changing. It's always interesting. Nothing is precious. How do we switch up what we're doing? And with the age of AI, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that team. I actually haven't been to the New York office either. So
nice excuse to.
It's kind of funny how that.
Nice. So we were talking earlier about Matthias. Did I get that right? Matthias being a hardworking person. Well, another one we've mentioned him before. We're going to mention him again. Is Felix Arntz. And this time we're moving into something which has already shipped in 6.8. Chances are you don't even know that it's there because it's just kind of in and it's on and it just does what it does. It's speculative loading. So I'll try and summarize it. So speculative, it's voodoo, basically. It's kind of when you describe it. Yeah, there's like a little gremlin there somewhere inspecting what you do. So this is the capacity to kind of preload, pre-render, pre-fetch, actually, different resources. So on different pages, for example, and you can set different aggressiveness to it and set certain actions to it. But a typical use case might be, I've got my mouse and my mouse is going to hover over a link. And let's say, for example, if I hover over that link for a period of time, perhaps that's an indication that I'm going to click on that page. Well, WordPress has got a fairly conservative version of that. So it's going to go and pre-render or pre-fetch, I can't remember which one it is, based upon the click event. So essentially, when you click, it will go and get that page. And normally there'd be this whole, lift the finger off and what have you. What I'm basically trying to say is it's going to speed the web up. It's kind of making predictions about what you're going to do. If you download the plugin and install it, you can change the prediction engine, if you like, so that it will be more aggressive. You could have it preload everything when your mouse rolled over. You could preload the whole site probably if you wanted to, but don't do that because we have an environment and we like the trees. But the point is, it's in WordPress 6.8. You may not have noticed it. I don't think it does anything on the back end, but on the front end, it should be fairly profound, and and it's in a fairly conservative mode, so it won't be eating up your CPU cycles too much. I think I've done that one. Was there anything else to add?
No, I really like it. I'm kind of really happy that some AI or prediction algorithm is there that knows where I'm going.
Yeah, it's there's a little man in my mouse who's looking the whole time.
Before I know that I'm going there. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. The thing to say is it's your WordPress is not doing this for you. This is a browser API. So WordPress is just building on something which now the browsers allow you to do. So again, your mileage may vary if you're on some kind of curious, browser used by 4 people, then it might not work. But in things like Chrome, it's definitely going to work. Chromium derivatives, that kind of thing, it's definitely going to work. I think Safari is definitely working. I think, again, it might be Firefox, which is just holding out a little bit there. But it is on in WordPress, and you cannot change it unless you download the plugin. You need to go download the plugin. Then you can get some additional settings if you wish to fiddle with it. But even on a cheap host, it's gonna help you out the box. And anything about that?
No, I just love seeing this sort of stuff. I think it's really neat to have contributors from different backgrounds in the WordPress project too, like having folks from Google working on this, or folks on the performance team, or folks on the AI team, having folks from an agency background, like all that sort of stuff just makes WordPress better. And so I love whenever I see these sorts of things happen. And I think it's really easy to miss this stuff. Especially when it's like a dev note. You're like, what is this stuff?
What voodoo is that? I did a podcast episode with Adam Silverstein, who I understand is now not with Google. Apologies, Adam, if you are still with Google. But we talked about, I think, 8 different browser APIs that have dropped in the more recent past, and some of them, things like the pop-up, an overlays API, things like that, which no doubt WordPress will start to take advantage of in the future. The browsers are basically starting to do a lot of work that JavaScript did, and thank the Lord for that.
Adam Silverstein did a great talk at WordCamp Europe about all these APIs. And he will do another one in WordCamp US.
I snagged him, like literally collared him as he was coming out the presentation. So we got him hot off the presses. It was all in his head still. However, I was just saying, if you wish to fiddle with your speculative loading, if you want to just sort of tweak it a little bit, there is a plugin. It's called Speculative Loading. It's by the WordPress performance team. The notes will show you where the URL for that is. And then this one, I don't know who put this one in. It was either Anne or Birgit. This is cool. So the WordPress version of this doesn't do anything on the admin side of things, or at least that's my understanding. You're still going to have to wait however many plugins you've got, you're going to wait anywhere between 1 and 50 seconds to make the next page load for your admin. However, Western Rotter has come up with a lovely variation on this, and it's called Speculative Loading Admin. And it takes that conservative approach and ups the ante. It makes it more, I love this word, eager. It makes it more eager. And so there's no way I'm not going to use this, because I'm the only person in the back end of my WordPress admin. I'm not going to increase the CPU cycles because it's just me. All right, I might do a teeny tiny bit, but only a teeny tiny bit. So I presume that's what it does. And Birgit or Anne, whoever dropped this one, and it just it allows that to happen.
Just one note, it's still experimental.
I won't be downloading it and installing it across all my sites. Okay.
Birgit also added it, so props to her on that.
I kind of like the speculative loading things, and I'm watching the space, and Western Rotter has been a long time core committer, so I also trust what he brings out.
I have a memory that like a couple of weeks ago, he leveraged, again, I don't know if it's a browser thing, this backwards and forwards navigation plugin that he came up with as well. I don't know if you saw that. I'll put that in the show notes as well, because he came up with something else, probably related to this, in all honesty, which allows you to pre-fetch or pre-render the when you click back in your browser and forwards in your browser, it will enable that to happen instantaneously as well. In that case, dare I say it, did we get to the end? Is that it, or have we missed anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay.
It was a ton of things that we dropped on everybody.
Yeah. Anybody who says that WordPress is not like on fire at the minute, you're just wrong. Because there's loads going on. If we'd have done this show a few months ago, I think we'd have struggled to make it quite as exciting as that. But honestly, all that stuff has dropped in the very, very recent past. And obviously, from the article that Anne's produced, there's a heck of a lot coming around in the 6.9 cycle. December.
And that was curated.
Yeah. You had to cut
a lot of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I don't think people realize
I'm
that.
glad
like,
that
wow,
you
there's
did.
so much in this. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I had to remove so many things.
I'm so glad that you did. In which case, if we have done it, is there anything that you guys want to mention that was out of cycle for this? So firstly go to Anne. Is there anything you want to say or mention? Or?
Well, I'll say I'm really excited about the WordPress Campus Connect. Ooh. This is just kind of somewhat of a non sequitur, but I got my start in university. I worked on a multi-site at UNC Chapel Hill, and they happened to be a VIP client of Automatics, and it ended up working out where I ended up joining Automatic. But I absolutely believe in that, and like as someone who joined quite young into that scene, like I think it's a great way to have like a pipeline for folks. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a really cool program. I think it's really interesting. I would have loved to do something like that when I was a student. I think it's a very powerful idea to kind of start getting people interested in the open web. I've always been fascinated about how do you communicate the value of open source to people. Like my partner is a lawyer, and I've had to explain to her why open source matters. And if we can get folks thinking about that sooner and kind of see the value of, we were talking about wood carving earlier. Like there's something so cool about seeing something on WordPress and then being like, this could be better, opening an issue and getting it fixed. Like that feedback loop is like almost intoxicating. Like I still love how much you can have discussions and how people open things and how you can directly, that empowerment in a world where everything can be so overwhelming, I think is really neat when it works. And so I'm very excited about what's happening with that. I just want people to keep an eye on it. And also if you're interested in mentoring, keep that in mind. We also need to have people on the other side who are helping them get up to speed there. And so I just am watching that with a lot of excitement and a lot of appreciation for the folks who've paved that way. So
I'd like to have that being the ending of that, that podcast show, because it's really a totally remarkable program, and it has mushrooms, from South America to Philippines and all the places in between. And I'm really excited about that too. Yes.
Yeah, and the work with WP Campus as well. Like they've been in the higher ed space for so long. Like I just think there's so many neat parts of the community there where we can catch people where they are. And get feedback coming in from both, folks from many different angles. So I'm just really excited about it and just want to call out like how much is being done there on the education side. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate you both giving us those comments right at the end. Thank you. The only thing I have to say is, firstly, thank you very, very much for the time that you've given to us today. I know that your time is very, very precious, and I appreciate you helping me to understand, but also hopefully helping the audience members to understand all of the different pieces that have been happening in WordPress core over the last period, 3 months or so. Hopefully we'll catch you again in 3 months' time. We'll be able to talk about the different bits and pieces that have kind of shipped in 6.9 possibly. Those roadmap items that we just mentioned maybe will be part of WordPress at that point. So Birgit, the explainer, Pauli-Haack, and Anne McCarthy, thank you so much for chatting to me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Ditto. Thank you.
Okay, that's all we've got time for this week. Just before we go, a big shout out to Anne and Birgit. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for putting together such comprehensive show notes so that I could follow along. Really appreciate that. The WP Builds podcast is brought to you today by GoDaddy Pro. GoDaddy Pro, the home of managed WordPress hosting that includes free domain, SSL, and 24/7 support. Bundle that with the Hub by GoDaddy Pro to unlock more free benefits to manage multiple sites in one place, invoice clients, and get 30% off new purchases. You can find out more at go.me/WP Builds. We're also joined this week by Bluehost. Bluehost, redefine your web hosting experience with Bluehost Cloud. Managed WordPress hosting that comes with lightning-fast websites, 100% network uptime, and 24/7 priority support. With Bluehost Cloud, the possibilities are out of this world. Experience it today at bluehost.com/cloud. And we're also joined by Omnisend. Omnisend, do you sell your stuff online? Then meet Omnisend. Yes, that Omnisend, the email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 for every dollar spent. The one that's so good, it's almost boring. Hate the excitement of roller coaster sales? Prefer a steady line going up? Well, try Omnisend today at omnisend.com. And sincere heartfelt thanks go to GoDaddy Pro, Bluehost and Omnisend for their support of the WP Builds podcast. Okay, just before we fade in the cheesy music, don't forget wpbuilds.com/subscribe if you'd like to keep in touch, /advertise if you'd like to find out about sponsorship opportunities like the ones that you just heard from. And we will be back next week for a podcast episode. That's on a Thursday. But don't forget, This Week in WordPress live every Monday, UK time, 2 p.m. We'd love to see you there. Okay, here comes the very, 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 very bad cheesy music. I hope that you stay safe. Have a good week. Bye-bye for now.